Okay, we're recording. Okay, so, all right, guys. Welcome to what I like to call intro hour. What the fuck? Get the fuck out of here. So, last week we went through Git, which was useful for the people in 1122 because it was, well, part of your homework. Okay. Not what I wanted. Well, I want Taylor Swift, but, you know, not on my screen right now. Did I lose my network connectivity? Now my computer's hanging. Whatever. Well, we'll disregard this for a little bit. This week, we're going to talk about text editors. And we're going to talk about workflow to make yourself a, let's say, not necessarily a better developer, but a quicker developer. Lots of different, there are things like Nano, like Vim, like Pico, like Emacs, like Pycharm, like tons and tons and tons and tons of editors. There's so many different editors that I don't think there's a single Wikipedia article or article that notches every single one because there's so many. Don't actually run with the talking about. And you guys have access to a Linux server known as Butterfly. Or for those of you in 1122, those of you not in 1122, you guys have Linux terminals, and you guys may commonly, at some point in your life, want to edit a text file that is only available remotely. So let's say you are remotely connected to a server, you do not have the ability to, or you should, but we'll talk about that later. You want to edit a file that's on some other server, let's say Butterfly for this instance. How do we do that? We don't have Notepad there, we don't have Sublime Text there, we only have a remote session, this tiny black box. And the answer is that we can use a text editor that exists on the other computer, on the other server. One of them, and the easiest to use, is Nano. Okay? Oh my god, my computer is so slow right now. Oh, okay, these are all your folders. So let me do something like nano test.txt. Okay? And Nano drops me into this little, oh my god, are you kidding me?
What?
No, like the network is just super bad. I don't know what's wrong. So Nano drops me into this UI that looks something like this, right? And it's really easy. It's very simplistic. To make very simple server-side changes, Nano is very, very good.
Does Nano create a file?
Nano will create a file for you when you're done and you save it. Okay? So let's say I want to type some stuff. I can just type some stuff, and when the computer decides to update, it will show it on the screen, and it'll be happy. Okay? So like bam, 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 bam. I can enter a couple of times and do more stuff. You'll notice at the top right, Nano says modified, and also Nano will tell us all these things on the bottom about what commands we can run. And the sad thing about Nano is that this is all that's available. Right? We have nothing else. There is nothing in terms of customization. There's nothing in terms of improving Nano beyond what we've already been provided. And these arrows just mean the control command, the control button. So let's say to exit, it would be Control X. To search, or where is, Control W. The weird thing, like if you do Control S, and I'm not sure what it means. I forgot a long time ago. It says XOFF ignored, mumble mumble. Just means you can't use the standard keyboard shortcuts that you guys are used to, like Control S or Control V or anything like that. Only thing you guys have available to you, right here. Okay? These two rows. Get help, write out, means to like save the file. Read file, load a file. Control W, previous page, next page. It means it just goes like up or down in terms of the text file. So like text, like Sublime Text, or any regular text editor will only show you a page at a time, right? You can't really just see a giant text file in any way. You need to page down to see things. So page down will do that. Cut text will remove certain text. Cursor position gets the position of the cursor, like this little line over here. And probably most importantly is exit, right? Because you can't really exit without knowing it. Control X. So to write our file, we will do Control X. And hopefully, when the computer decides to come back, save modified buffer. So when we hit Control X, it'll tell us save modified buffer. What that really means is, do you want to save the file or not? If you answer no, you will lose changes. And you see, Nano is very verbose, and it tells you what's going to go down. which is very useful, which is why very good for beginners. And if you hit yes, it'll save the file, and it'll ask you what file name do you want to write it as. Since we opened it with nano space text.txt, test.txt, it's suggesting that we save it as test.txt. Right? So we hit enter, and wrote 4 lines, and we've got nano test.txt. Give me 2 seconds while I stop using this terrible, terrible Apple TV on this terrible, terrible network. I have to figure out something to make it faster. Oh god. And there are other terminal text editors, such as Vim. For the most part, that really it can be used for very simple text changes, and for the most part, is only ever used for things that you change, like 1 line, 2 lines. So, like, let's say you have a project and you need to write like 100 lines, or it's a 1,000-line project. Nano's not so useful for that, right? Because Sublime Text, you make a mistake, you need to undo, right? Or you need to redo, or you need to like do like searching in the file more easily. Nano doesn't let you do that. You can't undo in Nano. You can't customize anything in Nano. You can't redo in Nano, right? It's unfortunate. So, Nano is also pre-installed on most computers, so that's also kind of a big leg up. It's already there. Vim is another text editor. Or actually, do you guys want to go in something more GUI based, since you guys have like that already installed for the most part? Yeah. Let's go with Sublime Text. So Sublime Text is a very popular text editor written by some company, forget who made it, and it is, in my opinion, probably one of the easiest tools to use. It's very simple. You just have a little window, and you type stuff into it, and you can open files or whatever. Oop. Control O, and let's say we can go to our desktop and look at. Not that one. I don't know what this is. Okay, this looks fine. So we can open this file, and it just lets us type or whatever, right? That's fine. Undoing is Control Z and Control Y. I think. Yeah, you're right. But there are also lots of very cool hidden features inside of Sublime Text. Okay, so let's say you guys know the concept of regular expressions. Yes, no, maybe so. Maybe no, maybe not. So let's say you need to find a file. You need to find something that matches a certain pattern, right? So we can use Command F to find stuff. And let's say we just need to find McFlurry, right? McFlurry, Sublime Text is automatically highlighting McFlurry for us. Nice. But now we need to get more complicated. We need to do something like find everything in between square brackets, okay? Everything in between square brackets. Clearly not that simple. We have all this data in between square brackets. Not easy, right? So we write a regular expression. Oh, God. Okay, well, I lost my regular expression there. And we specify a regular expression, and we can... Well, I wish you guys knew regular expressions. But basically, we're saying, look for all the square brackets and select everything in between them. So dot means any character, and star means repeat. The asterisk means repeat. Okay? So what does that do? Looks for the square bracket, find everything in between, inside of it, and then stop when you see an end square bracket. Okay? It's regular expressions. Plenty of text editors support them. So does Vim. Nano does not. Sublime Text does. Very easy. Very nice. But one of the cool features and the most important features of Sublime Text that they kind of like pioneered, they like this was their thing, and why so many people like Sublime Text is that it has this ability called multiple cursors. Multiple cursors just means this. I say find all, and all of a sudden I have all of them selected for me. Okay? So now I can just take these cursors. You see all these like little blinking cursors? I can do something like hit everything to the right, and now I can just say like make changes all over there, right? So what if I needed to like, okay, I just renamed this variable to Well, there's plenty of other ways to do this, but let's say I name this to a string. Okay. Now what I can do is I can hit I think Option maybe, no, or Control, or Command. This is a pretty bad way of doing it, but Command, and I select all the lines, and I can just immediately a underscore string, and then that's all changed for me, nice and pretty. Okay, super cool. Do you agree that that's useful? And in your life, this would have helped you so much time? Yes, probably. I know it because it helped me. So we can now like we can, for the most part, that is the single most useful feature of Sublime Text. But now let's say we did something a little bit cooler. Maybe .txt. Whoa, that's a lot of stuff. Okay, a bunch of net IDs. Let's go with a bunch of net IDs. So Sublime Text also comes with some nice features. Oh, I think this data is already sorted. I think I'm ready. Yes, I already did sort this data. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these guys over here, and then we're just gonna like shuffle the data around, right? Okay, so the data is kind of sort of shuffled, whatever. Sublime Text also gives you some stuff in their edit menu. So like let's say we go up to edit, we go to, is it text? Where is it? Oh, sort lines, right? So sort lines, permute selections. So let's say permute lines, we can remove all the duplicates right from Sublime Text very easily. I'm sure, I mean, I've used this at some point in my life when I didn't know about Sublime Text. I wrote a Python script and it removed all the duplicates for me, and I was like terrible. But Sublime Text has all that built in. So why don't we sort them? We can do case sensitive, doesn't really matter. And all of a sudden, all of our data is sorted, and we have some duplicates. I think, anyway, yes, we do have some duplicates. And we can once again hit edit, and we can permute lines and go with, oh, I could just shuffle it right there. Boom. Cool. Sort lines. Let's permute lines. Let's go with unique, and then we'll shuffle them all, and everything is unique and shuffled. Beautiful. Okay. Sublime Text also features, or at least partially features, something that allows you to install plugins. It's called package control. So if you go online and you Google stuff like package control, Sublime Text, you can install a Sublime Text package manager that has all sorts of themes, extra features, and new functionality. So one that I use is called Sublime Text Intel, and Sublime Text Intel gives me stuff that will automatically complete code for me. So let's open up source.py, and let's say I do a dot. Okay, my Sublime Code Intel kind of sucks, but it works. So let's see. Would you like me? Please just finish processing. All right, it's crap. No. All right. Well, Sublime Code Intel is ass. I don't like it that much, but package control does work. It is cool. And probably the most underused feature of Sublime Text, and I don't even know how to use it that well, and I'm fairly good with Sublime Text, is the console. So if you hit Control, for Windows it's Control-Shift-P, for OS X it's Command-Shift-P, you bring up this nice little window here, right? And it can do all sorts of different things. You can, like, if you have package control, you can add new places to get plugins, install plugins, do whatever. You can also change the syntax of code and such. So let's say in this untitled file, I wrote like import random print random.randint of 0, 9 or something like this, right? And you only need to copy this text down. It's really irrelevant. I'm just showing you some stuff down. So I'm showing you some tricks within Sublime Text. We can hit Command-Shift-P and then do something. You can type in SSPY, right? And what that's doing is it's doing a fuzzy search. I'm looking for these words here. Set, it's a little small, but it says set syntax Python, right? So by typing in SSPY, it just automatically searched for it and got us set syntax Python. So we don't need to like save it at all. We can just get our color syntax highlighting and be happy. Okay? Cool. Sublime Text also has really a very useful find across all files. So like Control-Shift-F finds across all open files, right? So let's say I had a variable that I changed, except this variable is changed, it is saved across 20 different files, like all across my project. Now I don't want to open up all of them. Instead, I can just use Sublime Text, do Command-Shift-F, search for the what we need to change, and replace it across all files. Okay? Command-Shift-F, Control-Shift-F, whichever one. You can also still use regular expressions, and we can also just do find across all files, right? The beauty of Sublime Text is not that it is pretty, but the beauty is that it provides lots of functionality in a very quick interface. Okay, I used it for a very long time until I worked at a company and everybody used Vim, so I used Vim. Okay, cool beans. Let's see, what else is there for... Oh, so Sublime Text also has the ability for you to run Python, or any language for that matter. So, if you hit for Python code, because for the most part, if you're on a Mac, the Python interpreter is built in, and if you're on Windows, the Python interpreter, you probably downloaded it already. Sublime Text should be able to auto-detect the location of the interpreter and be able to run it for you. So if I hit Command-B, it ran all this, ignore this weird stuff at the beginning, I don't know what that is, and it ran all this and showed us the output right in here. Okay, so like, let's say you're developing stuff, and I don't know what this is. Yeah, I don't know. Screw it. Something's wrong with my computer. Things are unhappy. But basically, you get the idea, right? X equals 2, x plus equals 2, and then we print x, and it just shows us all the things that we were doing. The only iffy thing about Sublime Text's output build window is that it has no concept of standard in. So you guys are I presume most of you are familiar with the whole idea of standard in, standard out, and standard error. Basically, you have text that goes out, text that comes in, and text that means that your computer crashed, or your program crashed, and programs are unhappy. Okay? Standard in, standard out, standard error. Cool. It has no concept of standard in. So like, let's say we wanted to do x equals raw input, and say like, what is up, dog? Now, if I run this, Sublime Text is going to crash. It says EOF, end of file when reading a line. This would not normally happen in Python, and that line is totally valid. The issue is that Sublime Text has no standard in. Okay, so you cannot input data in that way. Normally, anyway. You can modify Sublime Text with plugins and stuff. The easier way to do to run things that we need to pass in an input is you just oh crap. Is you just go into your terminal and then Python just run Python, right? So Sublime Text also has the ability to build any kind of code that you need to. It has something called a build system. And these build systems can be configured by you, right? So let's say you have Ruby code, and your Ruby code needs to be built a very specific way, or your C++ code needs to be built a very specific way. You can add build systems to tell Sublime Text, whenever I hit Command-B, you are going to do this, this, and this, instead of doing what your default configurations were, okay? So like, let's say whenever you ran your Python code, you needed to run your Python code with a special version of Python or whatever, okay? Let's say you had a custom version of Python. You need to use the special version of Python, so you modify the build system for Python here, right, or something like that, okay? Now, what else is there in terms of Sublime Text? Oh, Sublime Text also has this really cool thing, and no one ever seems to use this, and it's awesome. So you can split Sublime Text into like windows and stuff, like panes, and you can just view files side by side. You can also do like more stuff, and do, let's see, 3 rows, it's cool. That was awesome for me. And most editors have that nowadays. So I think for the most part that covers. Huh? Not that covers Sublime Text. We're gonna bounce between terminal and GUI. So for the longest time, I used Sublime Text for just about everything, and I still use it because it's awesome. There's also another text editor by GitHub called Atom that is kind of an alternative to Sublime Text that some people have decided to use. It's not bad. I personally don't like it. It feels a little sluggish compared to Sublime Text. Do you like Atom? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. You doing like the dubstep? So, so I don't personally use it. Atom's, I'm going to be using it for a project later on, but Atom has a very interesting design model in that Atom is actually a web browser. Atom is implemented by using a Chrome browser, right? And then modifying it so that it has access to the file system and stuff like that. So Atom is literally a Chrome browser, and it's just been customized to have a text editor inside of it, and only a text editor. So I strongly suggest you check both of them out. They're very cool. I use Sublime Text. Other people use Atom. All a bunch of different approaches. So now we can talk about the kind of cool stuff is Vim. And Vim is an editor that lots of people use, but it has a learning curve associated with it. Okay, it is a little tricky to get started with. So let's pick a file to play with. Well, the first thing that most people do when they get started with Vim is a command called Vim Tutor. Okay, so if we type in Vim Tutor, Vim will give us a whole bunch of stuff that will help us learn Vim. So these are just like a bunch of lessons. So the first thing to know about Vim is that Vim has this idea of staying on the home keys, right? The ASDF and JKL semicolon keys as often as possible. You always want to return there. You always want to, when you're done doing whatever you need to, your fingers go back there. Okay? And that was one of the core design principles. So in order to minimize movement, the developer, whose name is Bram something or other, Bram something, and he has us moving up and down, left and right by using the H, L, K, and J keys. Okay, and this is odd. Because what does that mean? I mean, does that mean that we can't enter those keys anymore? No, it doesn't. But to move the cursor, we use H and L, right? So I'm hitting H right now, and if I hit L, it goes right. Oh, it goes right, and then if I go K, it goes up, and J goes down. Okay. You don't need to do that. I still use the D-pad because I'm not good at Vim, but it's a good thing to know. So let's say hold down the J key until it repeats. Let's see. Use the down key, move to less than 1.2. Okay. Okay, things are happy. Sort of. Oh god, what is with this server? The internet connection is so bad. Okay. I do have Vim Tutor here? I do have Vim Tutor. Vim Tutor is everywhere. Okay, we're going to screw Butterfly because my internet connection is bad apparently. Vim Tutor, and we can do all this stuff again. J to move down, blah, 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 blah. So look at this. The cursor keys should also work, but using HJKL, you'll be able to move around much faster once you get used to it, really. So, does that mean you have to use HJKL? No. I use the arrow keys. Am I slower for it? Probably. But it's all about like how much you want to do. So the first thing that you should learn about Vim is that how to exit Vim. If you hit Control-C, doesn't do shit, right? You cannot just exit Vim. Exiting, one does not just simply exit Vim, okay? So, and there's a lot so we mentioned before in Nano, it told you how to exit it, it's just Control-X. In Vim, there are multiple ways of exiting, let's say. You can hit :Q to just straight up exit, :Q bang to discard your changes, and :WQ to write your changes and then quit. Okay? Now, does that mean that we can no longer enter the colon or Q characters or bang characters or W characters? No. Vim is what's known as a modal editor. It has different modes. Okay? And those three modes, as I understand them, as I believe they are insert. Oh no, there are more modes. Fuck. Anyway, insert, visual mode, command mode, replace mode. There's a whole bunch of modes. Basically, it boils down to insert and command mode. So by default, Vim is in command mode, in which case all of our keyboard buttons, they do commands, right? So J goes up or down. That's why I don't do that, right? So L moves to the right. Like the letter D will actually delete stuff, right? U is undo. Control R, I believe, is redo, right? Undo again. And then we can also do stuff like and go into visual mode with Shift V, right? So now I'm selecting stuff, and I can Y for copy or yank in terms of Vim, and then do P to paste at that line, or Shift P to paste. Okay, P to paste after the line, Shift P to paste before the line. I'm not creative. Okay. Oh. So that, in a nutshell, is Vim Tutor, right? So we've got. Let's recap a bit. Oh God, what is this? So, oh crap, I have all sorts of stuff here. What is this? Let's just do Topkek. Okay, so here's a bunch of code, and here's my text editor. Okay, so immediately we see that Vim looks a lot better than Nano, right? Vim has syntax highlighting. Vim, I've customized my Vim. Okay, so Vim also has something called a vimrc, which allows you to configure it and make it a lot better. So if you go on my GitHub, and if you don't have to use my vimrc, you can have your own. You can do whatever you'd like. Everyone has their own vimrc, and it just so happens that when you put your vimrc on GitHub, it makes it very easy to share it across multiple computers, right? So like, let's say I have my computer here, and now I SSH into a server, or I remotely access a server, and that server doesn't have my Vim configuration. I can just download my Vim configuration from GitHub using Git. And the magic of Git is that Git will keep my vimrc updated, right? So I can log changes, I can use other people's code very easily. Git's nice. There's instructions on how to install it at the bottom, but basically my vimrc is pretty simple. It adds only some things. Probably the most evident is mouse events, so I can click at certain areas, which is useful for me because I'm new to Vim relatively to like people that have been using it for years. It also adds the ability to do indentation. So like let's say when I do tab, it tabs it properly, and if I do shift tab, it untabs it, which is not something that's built into Vim. So Vim by default is kind of bare bones. You need to configure it and make it your own, right? So my vimrc will look different from somebody else's, from pretty much everybody else's. It also has something in the bottom that's called airplane. It just tells me what mode I'm in, what file I'm editing, etc., etc. So if we go back to it, we can kind of like talk about these commands. So we have in the beginning there was no light, and God said let there be light. But in the beginning we are in the command mode, right? In this case it's called normal mode. We hit the letter I and we go into insert mode. Okay? From insert mode we can do, oh crap, not that. From insert mode we can do, I'm not in insert mode anymore. We can move around and move our cursor and insert files into the text, right? Our commands no longer do anything. W does not mean write, Q does not mean quit, because we are in insert mode. Okay, so I type all this stuff, and I can write it, but I don't want to because I actually want to keep this file. Or actually, why don't I just close this file and then copy? Oh, well, I could have just done that from Vim. So let's just take a look at this. I can run commands outside of Vim by using the bang. So exclamation mark. I realize that it's a little difficult for you guys to see. Exclamation mark. Oh god, now it's really weird. Okay, and then we're going to do cp topkek.js. We're going to call it topkek2.js. And Vim runs the command, and we can press enter to continue. And then we can do something really cool in Vim. We can do the same tab thing inside of Vim. And I hope I remember this command. Tab and then topkek2.js. So tab E, I don't know what the E stands for. Topkek2.js. Hit enter, and it opens a tab for us nicely. Okay. We can also do stuff like split windows. Okay, B split. I hope that's the right one. You can't see that because that has answers. All the stuff. Oh, let's do this one. right? And all of a sudden, it opened it for us in the exact same way that Sublime Text would, right? And another cool thing is because I have mouse events turned on, and I'll show you that in my VimRC in a second, I can click inside of one of them and not have to worry about keyboard shortcuts to switch between them. That's easy for me. A lot of other people like using keyboard shortcuts because it makes them faster. They don't need to move, like do this motion between the keyboard and the hand, or like the keyboard and mouse. I sacrificed that speed in order to make it easier myself. So let's imagine you're editing something remotely on a server, right? Your boss gives you a computer and says that, hey, look, Kevin, you can only ever SSH into this machine. You can only ever access it remotely. You can't. Let's say you can't pull any files off it. You can't download files off it because that would be a breach of confidentiality or something, or right. So in the government, there's this whole idea of like clearances, and computers that are marked for like certain kinds of data, you can't take data from that computer and move it somewhere else, right? It's just the government. Ooh. So you can never move the data from that computer. You can only ever access this computer remotely, we'll say. That's not really going to happen, but we'll just say. So Vim gives you pretty much something super close to Sublime Text inside of a terminal, right? Which is why it's useful, right? Let's say I need to do development remotely. Vim. Because Nano is like Nano doesn't give me enough tools. Vim does. Vim also lets me extend it. So let's say by default Vim does not have any multiple cursors, right? But if you go on Google, look Vim multiple cursors, and there is something out there for multiple cursors, and apparently I've researched it before, right? There is something out there. I don't know how to use it, so I don't care particularly for it yet, but it's out there. So to recap, why don't we kill this? Oh, so Q, I can hit colon Q to quit this, colon Q to quit this again. And then let's just say recap.txt, and I go into insert mode with the letter I. So recap, or actually because we're cool, let's write markdown. So recap. Nano. What can you guys tell me about Nano? Nothing. It's a text editor. Yes. Simple to use. Anything else about Nano? Give me a pros and cons list, actually. Let's give me a pros and cons list. Pros. Right, so to do the selection thing, I did Shift B. Right? And then cons. Well, give me a con of Nano. What's a con? Limited tools. What does that mean? Limited tools seems so vague.
You only can use what you're
Provided. Okay. You can only use what provided. Give me another con. Anything. Can't undo or redo. Can't edit multiple files. No customization. Okay. What about, let's say, Sublime Text? What's a pro? Go for it. Just say it. Most of the languages you program in. Okay, so support for common languages.
Multiple cursors.
Multiple cursors. This is the big one. Multiple cursors. What else? Find replace. Vim also has find replace. I don't really use it that often because I'm bad at Vim, but yes, it does. What else? Build systems. Yep, build systems. We also have the ability to, let's see, like operate on lines easily, right? So remember like the sorting thing, or the shuffling thing. Like we have lots of data, we can shuffle it very easily. what's a con for Sublime Text? I realize it might be a little bit difficult to come up with one, given that we kind of just compared a real like two different classes of editor. What?
It matters, but you can't like do like thin or input.
Okay, that matters a lot. Yeah, totally. No sense of standard in. And then we just say e.g. can't do raw input, right? What's another con? I mean, why are we using Vim and Nano in the first place, right? What's another con for Sublime Text?
Can't work remotely.
Right. Can't work remotely, and I'll add the caveat without mounting the file system remotely, without mounting the remote file system, right? So there are ways of accessing the file system of another computer and having it available on your computer, right? Except that's a little slow, and by default, most computers do not ever do that. So, a little tricky. What other cons are there? Sublime Text. It's not free. Not free, right? Not open source. The thing about Sublime Text, though, is that the trial version lasts forever for the most part. It just nags you every time, every couple of after the 7th time you save a file, it'll nag you, and then it won't nag you again. But for the most part, it isn't free. It is an open source, and I will just go ahead and say a bad command output. I don't know what it's called, but the whole this thing, right? This area here, as you can tell, like I don't even know what this escape thing is, but it's not great, right? It's not awesome. Whereas with Vim, you can just do the colon exclamation mark run my code, and then it's fine. Okay. Now, what else? Vim. Give me a pro. Fast. Okay. Some would argue differently, but yes, it is fast. Some people are like, it has like a slow startup time if you get a lot of plugins. Well, yeah, you got a lot of plugins. That's what it is. Fast. What else?
You can run commands.
Run external commands easily. Anything else?
You can customize.
Customization. What else?
You can work remotely.
Work remotely, and let's say what else? Well, I'll just say and on most systems. By default, right? Vim works everywhere. You can even run Vim on your iPad. I'm not kidding. You can run Vim on your web browser. Vim is everywhere. Right, that's just what it is. Vim is everywhere. So run customization, most systems by default. What else? That might be a lot of it to me anyway, right? But there are lots of things that other people might like. Can't think of anything. Is there a con? Oh God. Oh God. What happened here? What happened?
That's a con.
Con. Difficult. Learning curve, we'll say. Learning curve. And can be difficult. Right?
Yep.
Okay. What else? I mean, it's a little confusing, right? The Modal Editor. Modal Editor is not the norm for most people. What else? Difficult. Let's say obtuse. We'll use one of the fancy SAT words. Obtuse, OOB, which is out of box. Okay? Out of box. It means by default, Vim is kind of flaky. And you guys have probably noticed this based on the Vim that you guys have played with. And we can kind of demo this Vim online because you can use Vim in the browser because that's cool. Come not the kid, not the this is not Vim. But basically, Vim had the guy that wrote Vim donates any money that you donate to Vim to help children in Africa. Or no, he suggests that you donate children in Africa or something like that. But yeah, he has a humanitarian cause. So when you donate money to Vim, kids in Uganda get support. So let's just put community support or something like that. Or it's not a con. That's not a con. Never mind. Not a con. Not a con. Disregard what I said. I was caught up on it. Helps kids in Uganda. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Huh? Oh, it can be run everywhere. We have that on most systems by default. There was something that I was gonna touch on, but well, since I forgot, it must not have been that big. So we wanted to look out interactive Vim tutorial, Vim.js. There we go. Some Vim. So some guy ported Vim to the internet. Slow. Come on, load. Hopefully it loads. If it loves me. Try the new version. Oh, there's a new version. All right. Well, his Vim is customized. He customized the Vim a little bit, but basically by default, Vim kind of looks not as fun. Whereas here it looks pretty fun. What else is there to talk about for Vim? Is that it? For pros and cons, yes? No, maybe so, yes, no? Okay, seems like it. Now, we can talk about VimRCs. So if you look at my VimRC has some stuff in it. Well, we'll actually look at my VimRC from here. Let's go up. Vim, by default, looks for this file called vimrc, right? This file right here, .vimrc, in your home directory, and uses it for configuration, okay? Now, what I've done is I've used what's known as a symlink to create this file. So that you guys have shortcuts in Windows and everything else. Shortcuts really are kind of the new version of a symlink. A symlink creates an imaginary pointer to a file, right? A file that already exists. So the file that already exists is this file called in the .vim/vimrc folder. Except this folder, this file here called .vimrc points to this one. So whenever a file, a program is looking for the .vimrc folder, it's going to get redirected, and it's going to open the file there. Okay. So now, if we look at this file, we will see my Vim configurations. Vim, bam, and it's got all this stuff. So pathogen is like a it's like a package manager, we'll say, for a plugin manager for Vim. It's also there's also something called Bundle. Bundle is a little bit easier. Pathogen is good to use with GitHub, so I use Pathogen. Then there's all sorts of stuff like set syntax highlighting on. My color scheme is called Dracula. Set t_co equal 256. That has something to do with setting the terminals, so I see all the fancy colors. This is for pasting. There's some weird stuff happening with pasting at some point. I don't know why. It just didn't work at some point in my life, and I was like, what? And then I looked it up online, and it fixed it. I also have some stuff that maps like tabs to do like indentation and stuff like that. I add numbers so that you can see the line endings. Right? Usually the line numbers are not there by default. The ruler is this long horizontal line that tells me where I am. The mouse gives me those mouse events. And there's just a whole bunch of Vim configurations that I've set up before. And if we look inside of the .vim folder, we have... Oh, I apparently need to pull something. Oh, I do need to pull something. So, you pull. Cool. All right, so you see that? I just updated my VimRC from Git, right? I realized because ZSH has this configuration, ZSH, which is my shell, has this little configuration that automatically checks Git repos that I'm inside of, and it's this little arrow that told me that, like, to update. Cool. So if we look in, I think autoload. Nope, not an autoload. Woo, we do bundle. So something. Oh god, can't type. I have two scripts in there. Or two plugins. There's Vim Airline and Nerd Commenter. I actually haven't figured out how to use Nerd Commenter because I just didn't look into it yet. Oh well. And Vim Airline is that little thing on the bottom here, right? This is called Vim Airline. It's a little fancy little pretty window. So I think some of you guys might have just realized that I did Vim on a directory, right? When you do Vim on a directory, it shows you all the things in that directory, and you can select which one you want. And then when you want to edit something, you can hit enter, and it'll bring you to it right there. Okay? Vim's super cool. I greatly suggest that you guys try it out. And before we end, we will talk a little bit about another editor that is very useful for Python specifically, known as Pycharm. Okay, I don't use Pycharm on my Mac because I don't want to install Java, because I don't like Java, and I have a strict no Java policy on my laptop. It's personal. You guys do not need to follow that. It's mostly because I'm weird. And Pycharm is a very useful Python IDE. Okay, it's very simplistic. Well, it's simplistic and easy to use, but very powerful. So its bread and butter is, for the most part, writing web applications. So let's say you write Django, or you write Flask, or you write, I don't know, whatever web framework. Pycharm has functionality that makes it easier to write these web applications. It has stuff like, I mean, it has most of that already by default, but its bread and butter is Flask and Django and stuff like that. But there is a free version that you can download that has most of all you need, like tab complete for code highlighting, or for code completion. It has a debugger built in. It also has the ability to, so this is only if you pay for Pycharm, but so you know the whole advantage of having Vim on the server is so that you can edit remotely. Pycharm has something that it will remotely connect to the server and edit files on your behalf, but that's only in the paid version of Pycharm. But the cool thing is that you guys can apply for education versions of Vim, and they're not Vim, Pycharm, and they're completely free. And I greatly suggest you try it out. So, like, let's say Pycharm will also kind of like try to help you code. So let's say it notices that you haven't used this variable. It'll tell you, no, you haven't used this variable. You should probably delete it. Or it also will identify like common mistakes. So let's say you do if x equals true, right? Do something else that is kind of unnecessary because you don't need to test if x equals true. You can just do if x, right? Pycharm will tell you you should probably do this instead. Make sense? Makes sense. Pycharm also has like Git kind of installed inside of it, and it's also got it's like Sublime Text, but specifically for Python, combined with Visual Studio. So it's cool. I think that's really much it. Does anybody have any questions about today, yesterday, or next week? And next week, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Next week we'll cover remote administration. So let's say I have my computer and I need to manage a server that's like in China. How do I do it? Right? And we can cover that next week, or if you guys want to keep listening to me, I can do it now. I will wait for 5 minutes and I'll just sit here. So, but I gotta stop this